You're going to have Michael Malone to kick around for a few more years as the Nuggets extend Moach. Denver faces the Clippers in their second tournament game on Tuesday night. What's that going to look like? Plus, who are the three best bench players on the Nuggets? All that and more with Matt Moore and Swipa on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Appreciate you being in every day or checking in with us on the daily. We have shows 5 days a week, and we appreciate you joining us for as many as you can on whatever platform that you've chosen. If you're on Apple Podcasts, just take a second and give us a 5-star review. It helps us out so much. We want to see Locked On Nuggets rise up on those rankings. We get shout outs from the Locked On Network, and it helps us keep the bosses happy. We appreciate you guys doing that. Best way to support the show, though, go to youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Hit the like button and subscribe. We are over 5,600 subscribers on YouTube. That's incredible growth for us. We're really happy for it, but we want to keep it going. If you know a friend that talks Nuggets a lot, mention the podcast to them and try and get them hooked, because we know how much you like it. We love doing the show for you. We want to do it for as many people as possible. On today's show, we'll talk about how Coach Michael Malone was extended by the Denver Nuggets on Monday. We'll talk about what that means, if it means that Malone's never going to be fired from the Nuggets. Hashtag probably not. We'll talk about what that means for the franchise and for Malone, honestly. We'll preview the Clippers game and what that's going to look like as the Clippers try and right themselves and Denver comes off a loss versus the Rockets in Denver. And in the final segment, I want to ask Swipa who are the three best bench players this season, because the bench hasn't been good. I want to know what he thinks of who has played well and who hasn't. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins, as the Broncos did on Monday night. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Swipa. You can find him on Twitter at SwipaCam. Swipa, how you doing this morning?
Man, I'm living. I wish I was feeling just as good as Coach Michael Malone is today, but it's been a great day. It's been a great week. The Rockets game was a lot of fun. Definitely a little bit of a stress point, but there's nothing better, Matt, than to be able to come off of a loss and to be able to get a nice little rebound game versus the Los Angeles Clippers, who are trying to find themselves after acquiring the system player in James Harden. So we'll see how tonight goes.
Let's talk about Malone. So, this one isn't hard to figure out, right? Not a very controversial decision. He literally coached the team's first championship in franchise history. I don't think anybody's stock was raised as much as Malone's over the course of the championship season. He managed the rotations great. He outcoached everybody that he faced in the playoffs, including, in my opinion, Eric Spoelstra. Spo was up against it, but he still outcoached him. Got it done. Mike Singer reported that the deal is for an additional 2 years after the remaining ones on his deal, the final 2 years. And so this is going to take him through 2027. Now, I'll just say this. We're in a weird era, because it used to be winning a championship would buy you time. You look at 2011, the Mavericks win the title, and then Rick Carlisle doesn't leave until 2020, right? So that's 9 solid years. Now, Carlisle is considered one of the best coaches in the game, but I would actually argue that Malone's record and resume would actually put him in that top 10, in that top 5. I think it's interesting that we've seen, if we go back, 2019, the Raptors win the title. Nick Nurse is no longer with that franchise. 2020, Frank Vogel wins the championship. Frank Vogel is no longer with that franchise. 2021, Mike Budenholzer wins the championship. Mike Budenholzer no longer with that franchise. 2022, Steve Kerr wins. Steve's probably going to kick around here for a few more years as long as his back holds up. So I do think that on a certain degree, there's always this okay, but what have you done for me lately thing? And whenever the Nuggets consecutive titles, whether it's 1 or 2 or whatever, whenever that ends, there's always okay, so why aren't we winning as much as earlier? So there's always that kind of concern. I do think it's probably a good thing by this organization, who notably in the past has been a little sticky with coaches. Like that, one of the reasons that George Karl was let go is like they didn't like he was a lame duck, and that added a lot of stress on him. And then also he couldn't get out of the first round.
Yeah,
I think it's really good for Malone, by the way, especially after to be quite honest with you, after all the stress he's currently still dealing with the trauma of losing his father. I think it's really good to give him the peace of mind of, hey, you're going to be the coach here. You don't have to worry about it for a couple of years.
Right. Yeah, and Michael Malone, I remember talking to George Karl about this last year, and Malone had a chance to etch himself in the Denver Nuggets history by being considered the best coach in franchise history. Because again, Doug Moe, great. Obviously, George Karl, coach of the year 2012-13, great coach. But at the end of the day, none of them even came close to snipping a championship. And so even just like Michael Malone's rotations that you talked about in the playoffs, Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray stagger, the way he was able to get Christian Brown to buy into his role. Michael Porter Jr. from 2018 to now, a lot of his success obviously is because of Mike and what he committed to on his end, but Malone also got him to a place to buy in. And again, a player that's like a facsimile of Mike, look at Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole with the Warriors, Jordan Poole now with the Wizards. I think Jordan also had an opportunity with Golden State. There's a lot of things that are around that as well to kind of stay within that program and develop. But I think Porter responded to very hard coaching very early. And even though it took some bumps and bruises for him to develop into what he is, I think that's a real credit to Malone and to Mike. And I think, again, he's a part of the culture with Denver. He is synonymous with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. He is synonymous with the Denver Nuggets. He had the Denver Nugget tattoo on his body now. Like, that's a big deal. And I think for Malone, man, he has done anything and everything this program has needed for him to do, and he's gotten better. That's the thing. Jokic has gotten better. Murray's gotten better. Porter's gotten better. Aaron Gordon's gotten better. But Malone also got better. Malone learned that he had to adapt the way he was coaching in some ways. He adapted to the way what the players needed. He's been very player-centric. He has listened to the players. They've had conversations, and you can tell now he sticks up for them. When I hear other fan bases talk about Malone, they love the fact that he is so seemingly engaged in press conference. He's engaged on the court. He's talking to officials. He's coaching his players hard. Again, the clip has been going viral on Twitter. You're pretending like we're up 30. They're actually up 25. Like, Malone doesn't have let-up spots. And I think for a coach that's trying to win championships, that's really what you need. And I think he embodies so much that is great about the Denver Nuggets culture. And I just think that he has just done some things that are going to forever make him a well-loved figure in Denver. And I think that rewarding him with a salary that is commendable based on the success that he's had and to being the first championship-winning coach in Denver Nuggets history, he deserves every single thing that he's gotten. And I believe, Matt, that with this year, if they continue to pace they're at, again, it's going to be hard with Ime Udoka taking over the Rockets. But I think Coach Malone, if they keep staying on the course this year, he's going to be in serious Coach of the Year conversation. So I think there's a lot of stuff I think that's on the table for Michael Malone this year.
When I ask the players what defines the coaching staff, the two things that always come up are a serious personal relationship. In that, and Malone talks about this a lot, about like sat down with him, put my arm around him, like really talk to him. And some of that is there are jokes that are made in league circles about how much Malone wins the press conference. And like, don't get me wrong, like Malone is a phenomenal coach to cover from a media perspective.
Right.
But, asking the players, like, that the obligation is then on those of us in the locker room to like go in there and ask the question of like, hey, did this, do you feel like you have this? And they do. They're like, yeah, no, like we talk. And if you say like, shouldn't coaches always talk to their players? Happens less than you think.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot of times when coaches do get insulated and they don't feel like they have a connection, or they don't take the time to do that. They're just coaching their team. Malone, because he had to coach a young team that was trying to redefine the culture, he took on the challenge of building personal relationships. And like, do I think that him and MPJ are like as close as him and Jamal? No, I don't. But MPJ, Malone saw what MPJ needed for the Nuggets, and MPJ was willing to give that sacrifice. Like, if MPJ hadn't been willing to give that sacrifice, and like this kind of ties in with Booth's comments, regardless of whether they were fair or not, he probably wouldn't be here anymore. But he did.
Right.
Like, he did give what he needed to in order to be here. The other thing that's mentioned is the detail-oriented stuff. Like, this coaching staff, through the changes that they've had from Wes Unseld to David Adelman, and Ryan Saunders, they have always been very detail oriented. And that's a lot of like Malone. There is, in some ways, Malone wants to win so much, and he does translate that. There are coaches that really want to win, but they don't want to do the work. And Malone does the work. And you made a really great point there about how he's gotten better.
Yeah.
This is a big thing that I've tried to relay to people on the show. Malone is one of the more self-reflective coaches. He's like arrogant, as all great coaches are, but he's also a coach that I know for a fact, like at the end of the year, he does self-assessment and says, what could I have done better? Right? Did I hang on to this lineup too long? Was I too hard on them in this spot? Did we push too hard here? Should I have managed the minutes? He's self-reflective, and that helps a lot, I think, with getting the best out of your team. And I think that that's really important to consider too.
Well, Matt, what's funny too, you brought up, one of the great things about doing this podcast with you, you're a historian, and I love that. And I think that in 2019, Nick Nurse's not there. Obviously, 2020, Frank Vogel's not there. 2021, Bud's gone. But they really, honestly, got the axe because of personnel decisions from the front office. You think about 2019, after they got Kawhi Leonard and lost him, they tried to build a contending roster around Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, and Scotty Barnes and Gary Trent Jr. What did they expect to get out of that lineup? And then 2020, Frank Vogel got blamed for them acquiring Russell Westbrook and getting rid of KCP and Alex Caruso and then Kyle Kuzma. And then in 2021, obviously, Bud could have done a better job at spots, but they also have a lack of wings on the roster. They went into the playoff setting. Drew Holiday is their number 2, couldn't shoot above 40% in the series. And then on top of that, Giannis also had things that he wasn't doing at a high level over the course of those runs. So these coaches, even in these instances, they're not great. But you look at what's happening with the Milwaukee Bucks now. Bud obviously has done a tremendous job, and their defense was always a top-notch defense around the NBA. But I think the thing with Malone that I love, Matt, is that Malone, whether it's with Tim Connolly or now with Calvin Booth, there seems to be, for the majority, not always, but for the majority, they're in a lockstep with each other in terms of this is what we want to see accomplished with this roster. Even though they might disagree at certain points, there's a continuity that exists there. There's a perpetuity of a relationship that exists there. They've all known each other for years, including from Kroenkes to Booth to Malone. And I think having a very stable, and again, this being a Kansas City Chiefs fan, that your ownership, your front office, and your quarterback, that's the most important relationships within an organization. From ownership to the Kroenkes to Booth to Malone to Jokic, everybody seems to be on the same page. You just don't get that in the NBA too often.
Yeah, and as long as that continues to be the case, the vibes are going to be good. Speaking of vibes, they'll be high in Denver on Tuesday night as they face the Clippers, an old friend they're familiar with some new faces on board. They're struggling. Denver's off a loss. No Murray. Clippers desperate. Is this a spot for a smackdown by the Nuggets again on the Clippers, or will LA finally find the rock bottom and be able to build something with James Harden? We'll talk about that on the other side as we continue on Locked On Nuggets. First, I want to tell you about Ibata. Hey, how does free Thanksgiving sound? This year, Ibata is here to give you cash back and help make sure that your Thanksgiving table is complete, because who wants turkey without gravy? Starting November 1st for the 4th year in a row, Ibata is giving 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem for everything that you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. Swipa, what's your favorite Thanksgiving dish? If you celebrate.
All the way through. Mac and cheese, easy, baked mac and cheese, 4 to 5 different cheeses on it. Make sure you put it in a warmer afterwards. I want the cheese, when you pull it up off the spatula, the cheese is literally dripping from the bottom of the plate. And also, you can't go wrong with candy yam. Put the brown sugar, marshmallows in there. Make sure it's warm. Make sure it's all splices together really well. But that has to be at the top of the list.
And you can get all those things on Ibata and get cash back for them. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt. Ibata gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure that you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibata, you get real cash back that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. You can also earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibata, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Download the Ibata app now and use code LOCKED, LOCKED, to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner starting November 1st. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibata app and use code LOCKED, LOCKED. That's Ibata, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKED. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Swipa alongside me, Matt Moore. We're going to talk a little bit about the Clippers game tonight. So the Nuggets face the Clippers in a late game tonight, 8 o'clock Mountain Time start. They're the late game on the national broadcast side. I have a crazy night tonight. I have an NBA bet stream for Hornets Heat at 5 Mountain. That gets done at 7:30. I'm immediately leaving and driving to the arena to catch the second through fourth quarters of Nuggets Clippers. So I have a lot of basketball on tap tonight. So you're never as good or as bad as you are at any given point in the regular season. No matter how bad it seems at like one of your worst moments, you're probably not that bad over the course of the season. Some teams, yeah. And so that's all like considerable. The Clippers have been an outright disaster. They're winless since Harden showed up. My bigger thing is that everyone like gets into the X's and O's, and they do have problems in terms of the size of the lineups they're rolling out without Mason Plumlee. That's going to be a problem tonight. But for me, Swipe, like this, a lot of this gets into the Nuggets are a team that are probably going to be annoyed that they lost that Rockets game, that are back at home, that don't like going on losing streaks. And they're going to take this game seriously because they always like, I just think that Jokic sets the tone after that 2020 bubble series. They're just always going to kind of be up for these games. So the Clippers trying to get right tonight. My bigger thing is that like they haven't shown spine, backbone, or guts. Like they just look wimpy. And like part of this gets into whenever they're down late in the game, they just bail. Like Lou just pulls the starters. They don't desperately try for the comeback like the Nuggets did the other night. They're just like, well, we'll get them next time. And I'm like, at some point, you guys got to actually be like, find something of a spine. What do you think about this matchup tonight, Swipa? And do you think the Clippers are in big trouble? Do you think this is a bounce back for the Nuggets? Is it a sneaky trap spot? What do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Nuggets are going to be a little annoyed for sure that they lost to the Rockets, especially given how the defense performed, and especially with the bench unit. I think the bench unit can have a much better day just because they have to. Like, they were abysmal, like a -15 with Joker off the court. Like, that's just, you just can't do that. And then on the other end of this, the Ty Lue is just, they are dead set right now. I'm playing Russ, Harden, PG, and Kawhi in the starting lineup with his Vika Zubac. I don't know what it's going to take. Russell Westbrook's been good for them, but I think if Harden's going to be there, has to go to the bench. I think they're very small. They don't have any of the grit that you would love for the Clippers to have. They just can't do it. Like even versus the Memphis Grizzlies, they just couldn't generate good offense. Their defense has been bad, Matt. Don't get me wrong, but their offense has been horrific since they got James Harden. They don't have any true process. They don't seem to know what they're supposed to be doing. And then you got Kawhi Leonard talking like a role player, like, when my opportunity comes, I'll take advantage. I'm like, what do you mean? You're the best player on the team.
You're Kawhi Leonard. This is
right.
I'm going to rant again. I rant on this everywhere I get a chance to. Like, Joker never wants to shoot a ton. Okay. But when his team is down and nothing else is working, and the only thing that can really be done is for him to score, he will have stretches where he just absolutely brutalizes teams in the post or from mid-range or from three or from everywhere at once, right? Like he takes on that understanding. Like the tone starts with Joker. Like when things get tough, Joker doesn't get more passive anymore. He did that, I think, when he was younger, trying to be like, we can all get involved. Maybe I need to take a step back. But he has come to understand, no matter how many times he gives me crappy answers on the best player question, that he's the best player and he's going to have to set that tone sometimes. Where's Kawhi? Like, I continue to be extremely annoyed at the fact that, like, look, the criticism on Harden is well earned. Like, James deserves what he's gotten himself into here. However, James Harden is not the best player on the Clippers. He's just not. It's Kawhi Leonard. Like, Kawhi has been considered at his peak, like the top 5 best player in the league whenever he's healthy. He's not healthy, but everyone's like, well, if Kawhi was healthy, Kawhi would be in that top 5. Like Kawhi's got to be the one that's like, we're not losing this game. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to drop 30. We're going to win this game. Like you're shaking your head. Like that's what needs to happen. And it never happens.
But think about if Bradley Beal went to the Suns and then Kevin Durant's like, when my opportunity comes, I'll take advantage. It's like, no, that's not how that works.
Like, what are you doing?
But I'm saying, but they started this whole thing, Matt, saying we have 4 stars. Like, we're going to build around our 4. No, you don't have 4 stars. You have 2 for sure, 3 in the regular season, and 1 is a role player now in Russell Westbrook. But that's fine. Russ has been good in his role. But the issue is that Kawhi Leonard's out of sorts. He's not being aggressive. Paul George had a good game. He had like 27-7, I think 6 and 6 this last game that they had versus Memphis. But if this is why I just don't understand organizationally from the owner and Steve Ballmer to Lawrence Frank to Ty Lue, how the message has been missed that you have an epicenter. That epicenter is Kawhi. But somehow we have built around Kawhi, PG, Harden, and Russ all having the same level of investment in this franchise. That's just not how it works. And I am confused that you saw in the playoffs that when Kawhi Leonard is the main option, you're near unbeatable for most teams in the NBA. But they have not built their offense around that. And on the top of it, but again, Matt, this goes back to the organization. They wanted to put Kawhi at the 4 to start the year. Now they're trying to build around all these players, trying to star hunt, and it doesn't make any sense. And to appease everybody's ego, we have to start all 4 of them. And it doesn't make any sense. And now, you know who they're blaming, Matt? It's because Zubac. If only Zubac was a better player, they wouldn't. Zubac has to do everything. He's the only defender that you have in your starting lineup outside of Kawhi that you can just trust every single option because, again, they don't have anybody on the POA.
PG's pretty good.
I mean, PG's good, but like I'm saying like two POA defenders. But the issue is that James Harden gets beat or whatever gets beat. It all relies on Zubac. And again, it's just the way they're all playing together. It's just not working right now.
So I got this comment, in the rundown about welcome to hell, Zubac, and a lot of this is that Zoo, like I've come full. I think I've gone a full 360 now on Zoo. I thought he was overrated with the Lakers. I thought he was overrated early with the Clippers based off of the Lakers hype. That happens a lot. And then like the last 2 seasons, I thought Zoo was playing really well. He was playing aggressive. He was playing physical. Zoo's really struggled this season. Like I'm watching him and he's back. He's either too far in drop or he's too high or he's getting beat out of position. He's getting bodied for rebounds. They don't have any physicality down there is part of it. And a lot of this is the way that they built this roster. Right. Like they were at one point, they were just running out these. I don't know why. Everyone talks about the Malone 3-guard lineups. Lue runs out 4-guard lineups. He runs
with
out
Kawhi at the 5.
Yeah, he was running out lineups with or the other night there was one that was in the Mavericks game. It was Bones, Russ, Powell, and Mann. All of those guys are 6'5" or shorter, with Tucker at 5, who's 6'5". And so, like, they couldn't understand they were getting beat, and Zeus struggled. They have no physicality. They really miss Mason, quite honestly. Like, the basketball side, I could talk about all these things. But, again, a lot of this is just, like, if Kawhi doesn't set a tone, I don't know what they're going to do. And there's too much of, like, we got to let Harden be Harden. Like, they talked about that. They're like, well, Harden's trying to fit in too much. We need Harden to be Harden. And I'm like, guys, this is not 2019. Like, James is, like, I have spent a lot of time breaking down. I can tell you all the great things about Harden's game and all the terrible things on it. He's not the guy he was. You don't want to be building a Harden ball roster. That's not what you want to do in 2023. We'll see what happens tonight. I will say Norman Powell off the bench is going to be the best bench player on the floor. Like, he will be the best bench player on the floor. We'll see if Bones Highland plays. He's actually out of the rotation and altogether. And Ty said that may be the case going forward. So, tough scene for Bones, especially versus Denver.
Wait, is it? Oh, by the way, do you know if he might be getting his ring tonight?
Oh boy, I don't. I would. Oh boy, we'll see tonight. I'm gonna assume no. Honestly, I'm gonna bet the veterans voted not to hand that one over. We'll see what happens tonight. So yeah. Anyway, I think the bench is probably going to be in another rough spot. And, we know the Nuggets bench has struggled. So we'll see tonight. if the staggered lineups of the Clippers can get going versus Denver's anemic second unit, or if the Nuggets second unit can get some stops and turnovers versus a pretty turnover prone group with Harden and Westbrook, and maybe that gets them downhill. We'll have the breakdown for you tomorrow on Locked On Nuggets with Adam Mares and me tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
All right, on the other side, speaking of the bench, I want to get Swipa's thoughts about who's played well on the bench this season. We'll talk about that next. Right now, I want to tell you about FanDuel Sportsbook. Score early this season, NFL with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. You can bet on the suddenly surging Denver Broncos to beat the Minnesota Vikings next weekend. Go ahead and use that as your bonus bet. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. You can bet on NBA MVP, where Jokic does once again lead the field. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us on a Tuesday, getting you set for the Nuggets versus Clippers on Tuesday night. So Adam and I broke down all the problems with the bench unit on Monday's show. And a lot of questions about, is this bench unit in real trouble? We're starting to see like the early success kind of fade. I want to get a sense from Swipa. I want to talk about the bench. I want to just talk about who's played the best. Like, there are problems that I've talked about with structure in terms of there's no one to create perimeter penetration or generate shots. There's a lack of elite spacing without Julian Strawther on the court, and even with him in some lineups. There's no big to help facilitate things and set screens and roll or operate as a high pinch post guy. There's all these like structural things, but that's outside the context of the guys that have played and how they have played. So, Swipa, I want to run down our top 3. Who do you think has played the best off the bench this season?
Reggie Jackson count?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Reggie Jackson's obviously number 1.
Yep.
He's just been really effective with the starter, and then with the bench, he's been effective. And so he's their only consistent shot maker, only consistent ball handler, only consistent pick and roll player. He has a floater that he's able to get to as well. He's been creating for other people at a decent level. True shooting is not great. It's like a 51, I think, right now, Matt, something like that. So not great, but again, that's all right. Let's juice by some bad numbers here and there. But Reggie's 1. After that, there's a little bit of a drop. But I probably will put Christian Brown there, but that's just because of the defense. I think Christian Brown had their Thunder game. He had 13, 7, and 7, like his best regular season game he's had. But really just not been consistent offensively at all. Doesn't have confidence in that shot. Even had, like, versus the Rockets, a little bit of a hick in the shot. Like, he just wasn't confident in putting it up. And then third, I mean, probably Peyton Watson, but I think Peyton is just it's underdeveloped. I think it's the thing. I think Julian has a way to move into this conversation. He just hadn't played enough. Had one really good game versus the Pelicans where he had 21 and made 5 threes. But I think Peyton has been better because his defense has been fairly consistent, been a defensive playmaker. You know, offensively, he's still trailing behind. But again, Peyton feels like inexperienced more so than like afraid. Christian at times has looked like he has just been afraid of taking certain steps, or even now when he does get to the basket, being in a situation to finish consistently. If he has an open lane or an opportunity to finish over you, he has done that at a high level, but it just seems like his confidence hasn't been there. So I would say Reggie Jackson, Christian Brown, and Peyton Watson probably have been the 3 best bench players. And really, Christian and Peyton are there because of their defense.
I'm going to go Zeke Naji, number 2. Zeke has attacked rebounding more than he ever has, and that was always a huge criticism of mine. And when he's being asked to both switch and rebound, that's a big task. He's done it effectively. He's hit the offensive glass and gotten putbacks. He's finished strong at the rim. The 3-pointer's not there, but that's a whole other subject for a whole other day in terms of how the 3-pointers have gone with him and the changes to his shot mechanics. which hopefully for him will pay off over the course of his career, which he now has time for given his contract. He's only 1 of 5 from 3 on the year, but look, he's got 24 rebounds. To me, that's really good. And given his limited minutes, only 108 minutes. Plus minus hasn't been good, but I don't necessarily blame him for that because he's not an initiator. He's got 5 blocks on the season. I like the way that Zeke's played. I don't think that Zeke's been amazing, but I like the way that he's played in terms of understanding his role and executing it more than the others. Right. Christian Braun gets the very, very, very slight nod for me over Peyton Watson for third because of the rebounding. Actually, Christian's rebounded really well this season. He's averaging 4 rebounds per game. Now, a lot of Christian's numbers are a little bit juiced because Christian plays more with Nikola than almost all of the other guys, except for now Colin because of Jamal's absence. And so that kind of opens up things for Christian. But I will just say that I continue to be I am uncomfortable for the Nuggets when Christian has the ball. And so when he's driving and he's leaping into 2 guys and he doesn't seem to have a plan or he's dribbling in circles, there's no decisiveness with the ball. And that's a real problem. And those are things that maybe he can work on and settle down into. I think he's always trying to get into the coach's message of, look, guys, we got to run. We got to be so aggressive. And he's just all right, so I'm just going to be aggressive and I'm just going to fullback dive at him. But he doesn't have the downhill speed that Bruce Brown did. And that was a big thing. Is Bruce was successful at what I was calling fullback dives last season because he would just get the rebound and just end to end go. But Bruce is also faster, and so Christian's doesn't have the downhill speed to grab the ball and get down there. And so that to me is a lot of this. So I don't like how Christian's played, but he's been more effective because of the rebounding. I think Peyton Watson, he's had the big highlight blocks, has had some defensive issues. I think the last couple of games that are stuff that he's going to work on. And there's not much of an offensive game there. The reality is that you've got Peyton Watson with very little offensive game, Christian Braun with very little on-ball offensive game, and no 3-pointer. And then you've got Julian Strother, who has the most polish of any of them, but he's a rookie, so he's still learning what to do on a lot of these things. Right. Colin's actually played pretty well. This is the thing is everyone kind of recognizes that Colin doesn't belong is a harsh word. Doesn't fit with how the Nuggets want to play in terms of the size and stuff like that, and it stands out. But how Colin has played has been good. Colin has played well. We talked about on Monday's show how I'd like to see Jalen Pickett, but if we went to a 4th guy, honestly, I guess I would go Peyton Watson, but it would be very close between Peyton Watson and Colin Gillespie. The fact that I'm the gap between Christian Braun and Colin Gillespie is closer than Christian Braun and Reggie Jackson. That to me is a good encapsulation of how concerning the bench has been so far.
Well, I mean, net ratings aren't everything, but they have a 118.2 defensive rating with Colin on the court.
Not great.
But they have a 123 offense. That's because he played with Joker in limited minutes. So I think the thing about Colin is he just is very small and he just doesn't have the ability to contest or defend at a high level. And he has died on some pick and rolls so far this season when he's been trying to, screen chase and all that stuff. But here's the thing. I think he has to play right now until they get comfortable with Jalen. I think Julian definitely needs to continue to see more minutes while Jamal's out for the rest of the month. But, yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, they're missing Jamal Murray. They're young and they're figuring it out. But guess what? This is what I've been trying to hold in context, Matt, is they will be better by game 82 than they are now because they're going to play, and you have to figure out how to play basketball. And similar to Christian Braun got better as the year went on. Bruce Brown got better as the year went on. So I do think as they understand the nuances of basketball that they will continue to lean into it and get better. But remember, we didn't see Christian Braun consistently to game 20, 25 last year.
Yeah.
And then 2 years ago, we didn't see Bones Highland until game 51 consistently over Facu. So they're already off to a head start. Peyton's played every game. So, and Julian's playing a lot more now. So I do think that with steady consistency, they'll get there. But, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I would almost rather have Justin Holiday in than Colin Gillespie sometimes just because I would just rather go with a 6'6", player who can play on ball a little bit and then have Justin, Christian, and Peyton switching everything as opposed to Colin.
I feel like Justin's done the right thing. Justin's attitude has been good. He played well in preseason. he's been patient. He played well when he was asked to come in. I feel like Holiday does belong in the rotation somewhere. It's just tough because of where their wings are at and the long-term priorities of the club. I'll agree with you. They'll be better by the year's end, but I also have said from the beginning that I think it'll be because there'll be different faces on the team by the end of the year, but we'll see what that looks like. That's going to do it for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. You can follow Swipa on Twitter at SwipaCam. I'm on HP Basketball. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to leave us those 5-star reviews and subscribe on the YouTube channel. We'll be back tomorrow to recap the Clippers game with Adam Mares. We'll talk about whatever goes on, plus the latest news of the day. Have yourselves a great day. We'll see you guys again tomorrow on Locked On Nuggets.